All right. So appreciate you taking the time to
Yeah.
chat with me today, Coach. So as part of our sports production class, we've had a lot of people talk to a lot of players, and they've talked about how this team really feels like a family. I've talked to you about how I feel like that starts at the top, and so I want to go inside a little bit into your mindset as a coach. Now I know you played for a few years at UC Davis, had plenty of accolades there. You played a little bit in the minor leagues. Can you tell me about what your decision to go into coaching was like, what was behind it, what drew you to the profession?
Yeah. Well, I had great coaches growing up, and then,
Mm-hmm.
in college, I had a fantastic coaching staff. I got my 30-year college reunion team that went to the World Series at UC Davis this coming weekend.
Uh-huh.
So get to see a lot of those old coaches. Um, and then in the minor leagues, like you mentioned, pro ball, I met a lot of great former players and then great coaches. So I was inspired by a lot of coaches throughout my time. But I think as a coach, you kind of start developing your own personality, your own mindset on to inspire these athletes and how to lead them and motivate them. And so, when my career ended, I was giving hitting lessons to young kids, and I was helping out at a high school in the Bay Area, South Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and UC Davis called me out of the blue, and
Really?
yeah, and I had just missed the alumni golf tournament, so I thought they were calling for a blank check and and a donation,
Yeah.
and I took the call, and it happened to be a call that changed my life. They needed an assistant coach. A
Mm-hmm.
coach had just left for St. Mary's, and so they wanted to bring me along. And they had just gone Division One. They had made their transition, and I took a leap of faith, and I jumped in the game of Division One recruiting and coaching.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like they took a leap of faith in you
Yeah,
as well. They
yeah,
identified you as a person they wanted to help with that transition.
yeah,
I imagine when you were first starting out, obviously you said as a coach you have your own way that you develop that you want to try to communicate with and inspire players. But I imagine when you're starting out, you are drawing a lot from those great coaches that you played for.
yeah,
Is there a coach or two that you played for, either at Davis or in the
yeah.
minor leagues, who you really took something from that you then decided you wanted to
Yeah, I think
use?
a couple guys stick out in particular. I had a great head coach at UC Davis named Coach Schif.
Mm-hmm.
He was there for 40 plus years. He's like a second father to me. Um, the pitching coach at the time was Matt Vaughn. I wasn't a pitcher, but he was a young coach that was pretty tough on me, and he knew that I could play, and I needed to be pushed a little bit harder
Mm-hmm.
to get to the next level, and kept a very good relationship with him over the years. And then when I got to pro ball, um, I was in AAA. I was about 26, 27 years old, and I got let go. My contract didn't get renewed, and I was figuring out what to do with life, and the Dodgers reached out and they offered me a single A position. And when you're that old and you've had that much experience in pro ball, you really don't want to go back to single A with all the 20, 21, 20 year olds.
Mm-hmm.
But it changed my career. I went down there, and there was a manager named Bob Mariano, and he just completely changed my outlook on the game. Um, Gave me the confidence I needed to keep playing a litll bit longer, and then get into coaching down the
Right.
road.
When you say change your outlook on the game, what do you mean? What did he change?
He changed my perspective of not living with live or die with every at bat or every outcome. Trust the process. Trust that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Those kind of things. You hear those cliches, but they're so true in professional baseball.
Yeah.
And I think it transfers over to life too.
Yeah.
And he really had a profound effect on me as a player, and then eventually a coach.
So I know that you initially went to serve as head coach at Los Gatos High School
No,
for a few years.
I
Is
was
that
an
right?
assistant.
An assistant
Yeah.
coach there. So whether there anywhere in your coaching journey, really, is there a moment that stuck out to you? Maybe a conversation you had with a player, or being able to see somebody implement a piece of advice that you gave them. Was there a moment when early on in your coaching career when you felt like, man,
Yeah.
I think I've got a knack for this?
Oh, I think I had a knack for it. Yeah, that 2008 team at UC Davis, that was my first year. We went to a regional, and we played at the Stanford Regional, and that team had 8 players drafted. And the year before they didn't play very well.
Mhm.
And here we are now in a regional a year later. And I had some of the older players come up to me, and and they'd say, hey, everybody calls me Schif. They say, hey, Schif, you've really helped our program. You brought really good energy, positive energy into our program this year, and we think it's made a huge difference from our 07 to our 08 team. So, that gave me confidence that these really good players that are going to go on to play professional baseball, they're Division I athletes, really liked what I had brought to them. And I said, okay, that's something that I can use, moving forward as a coach.
Yeah, and I know your players now really like what you've brought to them. What brought you eventually here to San Francisco State?
The opportunity to be a head coach.
Oh.
I was there, I believe, for 8 years at UC Davis as an assistant coach. The last few as an associate head coach, and I was ready to spread my wings, I guess, and be a head coach. And and SF State came open that summer. The job, I wasn't pursuing it. I received a phone call about it and an invite to campus, and I'd played here when I was in college at UC Davis.
Yeah.
I didn't really remember it too well. I had never been on campus. I had never been in the surrounding area of Lake Merced and the beautiful golf courses and things of that nature.
It's a different life than Davis.
It's a different life, yeah, absolutely. I'd only known UC Davis, and I got here on I call it my recruiting visit from the former athletic director, and I fell in love with it, and I saw potential. And they had been near the bottom the previous years before I got here, and I took it as a challenge. I didn't know. I couldn't foresee us being where we're at, where we're, fighting for a conference title with 2 weeks left. I just wanted to come here and compete and put a good product on the field and challenge myself. And every year it's just grown and grown. And it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah. You got here in 2015, 2016?
Yeah, 15 fall.
15. So, looking at your history and your resume, it's right around 2018, 2019 where I start seeing things like, most wins in 15 years and making it, further this far into the playoffs for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
What would you attribute that to? What was the growth period like from when you get here at 2015 to finally having that success in 2018, 2019?
It takes patience. It takes tremendous assistant coaches. I've been blessed with a lot of good assistant coaches that took a leap of faith coming here, and I think 3 or 4 of them are now Division I coaches, which is fantastic. But it takes patience. You have to have a recruiting mindset of what you want to bring to this to Maloney Field and this conference.
What does that mean?
So we took our bumps and bruises early those first 2 years, as you mentioned, and we were getting beat by the Chicos and the Pomonas and the Monterey Bays, and I would look across the field and say, we got to get more physical. We got to get better on the mound. We have to. This is how we have to recruit. This field is huge, and we do hit a lot of home runs now, but 7, 8 years ago we were a short game team. We bunted a lot, we hit and ran, and we utilized Maloney Field to our advantage. But now I think we have a good mixture of both.
Yeah.
But it took us getting knocked down those first 2 years to realize what we needed to do to compete.
Yeah. And so you followed, as I said, that success, followed that to good success, in 18 and 19. And last year, obviously, you guys made it very, very far. And this year you get kind of the news that this is all going to go away kind of right as you've hit your peak. What is the message to the players to try to try to keep that same energy, that same mindset, and keep singularly focused on, hey guys, look at how far we got last year. Let's just get back up on the horse and only think about this year. You've got to be singularly focused. How do you communicate that?
So, when we got the news, it was a mixed bag of emotions. There was anger, there was disgust, confusion, right? And so you have to kind of take a deep breath. Like we always tell our guys, in tough moments, take a deep breath, reset. And we had to do that as a program. There's a lot of players that wanted to go to the administration, and a lot of parents that did too. And we had to like sit back and say, okay, guys, this is the hand we've been dealt. Let's focus on what we need to do on the field, because that's going to be what's going to help you moving forward in your future.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that we'd be able to save the program. Excuse me. So we're going to have some success on the field. You're going to have to put up some numbers, especially you underclassmen, to have an opportunity to play somewhere else next year.
Yeah.
And in the last 2 weeks, we've had 8 Division I schools at our practices, watching our players, and so that's a testament to those guys and how hard they work and their ability. We have about 16 to 18 underclassmen that we have to find homes for. Yeah. We're graduating 23, 24 guys. So to get back to your question, the first thought for me was taking care of the players, and make sure they knew that I was there for them and I was going to fight behind the scenes for the program. But at the same time, we have to prepare for if we don't have a program in the future, that these guys find a home.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on right now. And then I changed the standard here. Last year we had a standard, we had a goal. We wanted 30 wins.
Yeah.
That was our goal. We hadn't reached 30 wins yet, and we worked really hard to get to that 30 win mark. And then, like you said, it took us through the playoffs and into regionals. I changed the standard this year. The standard was the national championship.
Yeah.
That's the standard in the dugout. That's what we talk about, the dugout. Yeah. Because to win a national championship, you're going to have to be in the top of the conference. You're going to have to win your regional, super regional. So I don't even need to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's our standard now. And I hear guys talking about it.
Yeah.
I think they believe it. I think it's a special group.
Yeah.
There's a lot of baseball still ahead of us. I mean, this weekend we got to take care of business and go down to Monterey, who's been a nemesis for us. Yeah. And so, I think at the end of the day, they know I'm here for them to take care of them for their future. But we're also really focused on what's in front of us, and that's Friday's game against East Bay.
Last couple of questions. I know you've had the experience at Davis before you were here, obviously high school before that. So it may be hard for you to necessarily compare, but when you think about San Francisco State Gator baseball and you think about the culture that you have tried to implement, you have seen other teams across from you, you have seen other coaches. What makes Gator baseball special? What makes it different? What makes it unique?
We have a chip on our shoulder. You look around here, you got an old dirty generator. It's out of service since 2016, sitting on our field, broken wheelbarrows, flowers on the field, worn down nets.
Out of service right over there.
Yeah, and we have a generator that you can hear going because we haven't had power for 3 months down here. A lot of these things that you see around here, we bought ourselves, and because we just don't have the budget for it. So we play a little chip on our shoulder, and I think if you come watch us play, you see that those guys fighting for each other and knowing that we're not expected to win with what we have here, and so it's like you mentioned. You said the word earlier in the interview, the word family.
Yeah. And
I always tell the guys, like, family is about unconditional love. You just, no matter what, you love each other. You're not gonna have everything you want in your life. You're gonna have disagreements with each other, but at the end of the day, we love each other. Sometimes you're not gonna like me, and you're not gonna like the lineup, or you're not gonna like your playing time or how I use you and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, we all love each other and we care about each other, and it really comes out when you watch us play.
Yeah.
It's fun, it's loud, we're respectful, we play with class. But we play hard. We run the bases hard. We hit with power. We pitch well.
Yeah.
I just think it's an exciting brand of baseball that I'm proud of that we've built here.
I can personally testify to that. I was on the call for Flow Sports for that doubleheader against Pomona, that record weekend when Santos breaks a record, Cunningham ties a record, Pappas breaks a record, and I want to get into this game of play-by-play broadcasting, so I'm listening to it back, and I'm criticizing myself because I felt like I got swept up a little too much when Justin Johnson took that after they walked Murillo and Cunningham to get to Johnson.
Right.
And I said on the broadcast, you look over at the Gators dugout, there is not a single person who's not just about ready to climb over and mob the field. And, I had the call and I feel like I got a little too yelly, but your point is valid. Like, you do get swept up in it when you're here.
Yeah.
Last question for you, and this could be tough to isolate, but without thinking about it too hard, you had a lot of players come through. You've given credit to a lot of great coaches as well. Is there a player or a coach or a moment that you feel like has really taught you something or made you better as coach
Yeah.
of,
Wow.
of
Good
this
question.
team? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, a lot of players come to mind. The first one's a young man named Jackson Critch. He was an infielder here, and he was a part of our first recruiting class.
yeah.
And he ended up being an All-American. He came in as a freshman and worked hard, and then the pandemic hit, and he was our first guy to go Division I.
Oh
He
yeah.
transferred out and went to UC San Diego and had a fantastic year. So he kind of set the precedent here. Then we had a kid named Brady Dorn come in, and he was our first big junior college commit. He ended up being an All-American with Critch on the same team. And
Oh, wow.
I think the moment for that team was, you mentioned the 2018 team. It was my third year here, and it came down to game 50, the final game of the year. We were playing Sonoma, final game of conference, and the winner of that game got the 6th spot in the conference tournament.
Yeah.
And SS State had not been to a CCAA conference tournament ever. And we won that game.
Yeah.
And I remember the dog pile on the mound.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you what happened. I can't remember the CCA tournament games at all, but I remember that moment, dog piling on the mound, and those two guys were huge parts of that. But then ever since, I got to mention Daniel Santos. I mean, recruited him 4 or 5 years ago, and he's walking out here as a career hits leader. I recruited Nathan Shin during the pandemic. He's walking out of here with the 2nd most innings pitched ever and the most strikeouts ever in history. Michael Cunningham I recruited during the pandemic. Michael Cunningham holds the career home run record. And so, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I think this is worth saying. I don't know how we're going to end up this year. I don't know number of wins, record, all that stuff, regionals, all that stuff. But I will confidently say this group of young men on this team might be the best group of young men ever put together at San Francisco State. And if you want to argue with me, just look at the record books.
Yeah. Going out with a bang.
There's 4 or 5 guys that could win the home run record. Danny Murillo, I think, is one of the best players ever to put on an SS State uniform in the 70 years of existence.
Amen. These things, as you know, get treated like line items on a budget, but it's moments, it's memories, it's people, it's places, ragged as they may be, but you make it what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for
My
sharing
pleasure.
your time with me.
You guys, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So we'll be out here still next few days.
Good.
Good luck to the Gators as we go to the end of the season. The standard is national championship, correct?
Yep.
We'll see what happens.
All right.
Next.